We got all the survivors back to a school safe house, safe and sound, and they were actually pretty decent folks. They were from a suburb further upriver and had been trying to reach a shelter they'd heard about on the east side of town. They'd heard about it from some looters from the shelter who were working their way around the city, telling everybody about the place so they could get more people to defend it, maybe even make an attempt to take back the city. Now we all smelled shenanigans from a ZM, but our characters, that sounded like a pretty sweet deal. So we made plans on how we were going to make our way east. We had stockpiled a ton of weapons and food in the place, which we were more than happy to share with the new bros, and we decided to wait a week to let them recover. They'd been on that island nearly 3 days before setting out. By Wednesday morning, we were fucking surrounded. The smarts on the roofs, which had probably been fucking stationed there to watch for survivors, had watched us all the goddamn way back. The school was in a bad neighborhood, so it had a decent fence around it, and it was a sturdy, old brick building. That didn't stop the occasional brute from climbing it to get at us, despite the smart's best efforts to hold him back. We were regularly attacked, but kept together, managed to stay unharmed. By Thursday morning, Mike and Jim, who were on the roof to try and get a view and see if we could somehow escape, noticed that the smarts were corralling a fuck ton of brutes along one part of the fence, keeping them back enough that they couldn't see us and rush to attack. There were nearly 100 of the brutes and already well over 1,000 smarts surrounding us on all sides, just waiting. We knew we had to get to the fuck out, so we made a quick visit to the teacher's parking lot. Now, as I said, every other character had their badass moments. This was one of Luke's. Luke was an ex-army character, had demolitions, electronics, and traps. We didn't have any explosives, but we did have a parking lot with about 30 cars mostly full of gasoline, and a school full of small electronic devices. With a little luck and a lot of care, we moved a bunch of the cars into position by one of the fences. Luke rigged their gas tanks with some wires leading to a hole we quickly dug, and we were prepared to run for it. The zombies obviously couldn't understand exactly what we were doing, but had the brains to recognize incoming shenanigans. The smarts let loose the brutes and they started climbing the fence as all of us in the hole stuck the wires in our flashlights to make a circuit and turned them on. The electricity set off the gasoline and a row of 30 cars blew right the fuck up in the brutes' faces. The force of it knocked the smarts along the fence down and stunned those whose brains weren't liquefied by the pressure of the blast, and we ran like fuck along them. We had some close calls. We slipped a few times, had to kill a few who stood up, and a couple of the survivors got bit. This game you had to die before you returned, so not too serious, and ran like hell eastward. The next few sessions were probably our tensest. The smarts were fucking learning, man. They hadn't just come at us all willy-nilly, no. They had left mobs along every street waiting in every building, and they had held back a lot more brutes. They really fucking wanted us dead. I don't think it was even about eating us anymore, they just wanted a little party to be dead. We were legend. We had to keep moving all day and all night. We couldn't hold up in any buildings, we couldn't go to the rooftops, they were wise to that. The first time we tried, we came out to the side of 100 of them as dozens more broke open doors behind us trying to scissor us in, and we couldn't stop. Pretty soon the little group was run ragged. We were low on ammo and everyone's stamina was so low, only Reggie could still reliably hit anything in close combat, and he was carrying one of the other survivors who had passed out. "No, we are not leaving them behind." Roll intimidate. By noon the next day we were in a serious bind. We'd long left behind the big mobs, but we could hear howling and only assumed the smarts were somehow directing the brutes towards us. This was confirmed when we looked up and saw smarts watching us from the rooftops. That was when we lucked out. We were running along the river, planning to jump in as a last resort if things got too hairy, and came to a small bridge crossing it. A wooden decorative bridge. That was when the brutes found us. Everyone ran across the bridge. Reggie stopped long enough to knock the heads off of a few, and we reached the relative safety of the far shore. Jim and Luke and the survivors took a few pot shots at the brutes to slow them down, but there were about 50 of them, and they were about to swarm across. So Reggie did the only thing he knew and punched the bridge. 2 punches! And the nice, rickety little bridge broke loose from the edge. As the brutes raced towards us, their weight collapsed the bridge, and about 30 of them fell into the water and washed away. We barely started to celebrate when the brutes in the part of the bridge that was still standing started leaping at us. Right into Reggie's waiting fist. Those who made it across were knocked right into the water, and then we were safe. We found the nearest safe-looking building, a fire station, to hold up for the night. We just slept and ate and drank water for 2 days, recuperating and healing, before we decided we had to move on. If the Smarts could communicate well enough to guide each other to us, they could surely call across the river to tell the other zombies about us. We decided we needed to know more about our situation, so Mike got on the roof and looked around. As best as he could tell, the rooftops and streets around us were pretty empty. We were basically a block away from a big shopping district, so we ran a few quick looting operations to resupply, search for other survivors. By the end of the third day in the fire station, we were ready to move on. We continued east towards the big shelter that might not even be there anymore. A day later heard the explosions, and the morning after we saw the edge of the mob and the shelter they were laying siege to. The shelter was basically a chance lucky break for the people in it. When the city had been bombed, a lot of the skyscrapers in the business part of town had collapsed, forming high piles of rubble that the Smarts couldn't crawl up and couldn't pull away. One small office building, built sturdy because it housed a large computer mainframe, had standed in the middle of the impromptu barrier, and now nearly 500 people were living in it, in little shelters built out of scrap, manning the walls and waiting for supplies. They had built little ramps that they could raise and lower crisscross the stretches of the rubble so they could quickly get around and post the horde at the gates. Apparently, somebody had found some explosives, and we watched them bomb the Smarts to clear enough room so a group of looters could get out and make a break for the city. We signaled them as best as we could, and eventually managed to get the attention of one of their patrols. They made a sign pointing us further along the wall, and eventually we reached a spot with a ramp, which they lowered after bombing the zombies, and we ran up it. That's when we got taken to meet the president. The president was actually D.H.R. Manilow. Hell yes, I remembered this guy's name, who formerly worked for a record label. He'd been out having lunch when things went to shit, had hidden in the basement of one of the skyscrapers during the bombing and miraculously survived. Most of the people there were white-collar types and had quickly fallen in line with Manilow's leadership. Now, Manilow wasn't a big man and was pretty much a snob, but he had found a very big gun at some point and had a frighteningly calm expression for a man facing the end of the world, so everyone there was pretty okay with him being the leader. And he had made the place into a pretty sweet setup, and they'd learned a lot about the zombies, including the Brutes' heart weak spot, which made Reggie's day. His rules were simple: everyone do what I say, and if you don't like it, get out. The survivors we'd picked up were happy, and at first we were okay with it. Then, after the first night, we noticed that we couldn't find the bitten survivors who'd been with us anywhere. We asked around, gave out their descriptions, but no one had seen them. We shrugged it off, and the four of us started patrolling the walls to help out. There really wasn't much to do. The walls were completely impenetrable to the Smarts, and with a knowledge of their weak spots, Reggie could drop any brute that came along instantly. That night, we saw the group we'd saved again, and they were really starting to worry. So the four of us went to ask President Manilow about it. Manilow then plainly stated that those bitten were shot and thrown out. Now, Reggie's eyes popped out of his head like the pic related, and it was all Mike could do to shout out a quick farewell as Jim and Luke dragged Reggie outside. Just as the doors closed, we all saw Manilow's calculating glare as he ran a finger along his very big gun. Now, unbeknownst to us, the 5 remaining people we'd saved had been spreading tales of our exploits. By the end of our first day in the place, we were something of local legends. This was good, because we got lots to eat and Jim got to spend the evening with the trophy wife whose husband had died. This was also bad because the looters wanted us to get back out there and find supplies. Apparently one of the looting parties hadn't made it back, and they wanted us to go out and see if we could find what had happened to them, because they had been out to raid a pharmacy for medicine and water purification tablets. We decided we quite liked the idea of getting out for a while and agreed. They marked the pharmacy on our map. It was 20 blocks away, back towards the river. They bombed the zombies, lowered the ramps, and we were off, happy to be out again. Just the 4 of us against the motherfucking end of the world. The journey to the pharmacy was relatively easy, but when we got there we saw the problem. About 50 zombies were hanging on the front glass. A horrifying thing to those inside, but a good way for Reggie to vent some anger. Just 50 Smarts and 1 Brute were in the siege. When we got in, we met the looters, who were very grateful. The ZM did a very strange thing and asked Reggie, and only Reggie, to make a perception roll. By that time, I'd upped Reggie's perception to its maximum of 3, and I barely made the success. That was when Reggie looked down at the brute whose heart he'd just imploded with 1 punch, saw through the blood and the muck a bullet hole in the head, that it was one of the people he'd saved, the one he'd carried in a mad dash from the school. We helped the looters gather up the supplies and prepared for our journey back. We explained what had happened to the looters, and they started to look worried but kinda laughed it off. Apparently Manilow had been shooting those bitten for a while now, and everybody just accepted it. We worked our way back to the rubble wall and signaled the patrols. They bombed the hordes, dropped the ramp, and the looters rushed up ahead of the group to get up. Reggie, Luke, Jim, and Mike reached the bottom of the ramp, then stopped. President Manilow and 4 men stood at the top of the ramp, guns trained on us. The 5 remaining people we'd saved were up there with them. Manilow looked straight at Reggie and said, "You're not welcome here anymore. If we see any of you again, we'll shoot you. Then we'll shoot them. Get out, leave, and don't come back. Don't even look back." We glanced around and saw the zombies starting to shamble in, then turned and ran. Once we were some distance away, we slowed down and Reggie looked back. When he did, Manilow shot one of the survivors in the head. "I warned you," he shouted, then pointed the gun at the next survivor's head. Reggie turned and ran. We kept running. When we were blocks and blocks away, we stopped. "I'm gonna fucking kill him." Jim, "Fucking hell yes." Luke, "Dude, there's no way we'd even get close to the place." "Don't care, I'm gonna kill him." Mike's player looked thoughtful for a moment and said, "Maybe we could. Fuck man, that's just not right. You remember the looters we saved? They were freaked out when we told them what Manilow did. I'll bet lots of people in there have lost people the same way." We made our way back to the fire station hideout, barricaded the fuck out of the place and started to plan. Really, Jim, Luke, and Mike started to plan while Reggie searched the place for a bit. Until then, Reggie hadn't carried any weapons or any protective equipment apart from a leather jacket. But now I asked the ZM if I could rig something up. A couple of disassembled fire axes and some belt buckles later, Reggie had made an improvised punching dagger and strapped it to his left arm. By then, Jim and Mike had talked Luke around and they'd come up with a plan. Simply put, we were waiting till a looting party of at least 4 was sent out. We would follow them, wait until they'd found what they were after, then we would subdue, or if necessary, kill them and take the clothes. Then we would wait until dark to signal the wall patrols, get into the city and make a run to Manilow's office to kill the fucker. We didn't care if we died so long as we took that fucker with us. We set up shop on top of a Bed Bath & Beyond. We had acquired a pair of binoculars and enough food and water to last the 4 of us a week. Then we waited and watched. Most of the parties sent out were in 2s and 3s, probably to minimize losses. But at the end of the second day, a party of 5 made a break south towards the river. We got off the roof and circled around after them. Reggie had shit for stealth, so we followed a block behind everybody else. Soon the group caught sight of the looters. Checking the map, Mike realized they were making a beeline for a police station several more blocks away. We regrouped. "Mike, they're probably going for guns. If they get them, it'll be too dangerous to take them out." "Jim, then we kill them the second they reach the door, so we're sure that's what they're really after." We ran full speed down another street trying to get ahead of them. We ran out into the street just as they did, and there was a horrible moment where they recognized us and shouted, drawing their weapons and running towards the station. Jim shot one of them in the back of the head and then Reggie was on him. They were dead in 1 round of combat, their skulls caved in by his fist, their throats ripped out by the axe head. We dragged their corpses inside and stripped them, washing the blood off with some of our water. Then we put on the clothes. One of them had been kind of fat, so his clothes fit Reggie. Gathered up as many guns as we could in the bags they'd brought and waited till nightfall. We were worried they might send another group to find this one like we had been sent out to the pharmacy. But apparently that had been a one-time thing to get us out. When night came, we worked our way back to the walls. We crept around to the ramp and they had the zombies beneath it. Mike wanted them to use up as many explosives as possible so they couldn't use them on us. We signaled with the flashlight and they threw a lot of explosives down to clear a path. They lowered the ramp and we got up quick. "Patrol guy, are y'all from the police station? We were worried, man, but good job. Weren't there 5 of you?" "Mike." "Lost one." Patrol guy, "Shit, another? Who was it?" "Phil." Patrol guy, "I don't know. That was when Reggie's fist crushed the man's skull. The other 2 patrolmen were dead in an instant later, but it was too late. People had seen us in the torchlight and shouts were going up all over. By this point, the other 3 had upped their gun skills considerably, and we had good rifles from the police station. So we decided quickly that our best bet was for Mike, Jim, and Luke to take up position on the wall and snipe while Reggie made a dash for the building. The 3 could cover him, and once inside close quarters, we knew there wasn't a man alive who could beat Reggie. Reggie jumped down off the rubble and made a dash for the building as gunfire sounded off all around the ramp. People were running around in a panic, so most of the guards weren't risking shooting at Reggie and weren't skilled enough to hit the three on the wall. Any of our 3 gunmen could fucking shoot the head off of a cockroach. Reggie covered ground quickly and got to the building without a hitch. He then had to go around the side of the building to get to the door, out of view of Mike, Jim, and Luke, and right into the sights of President Manilow and 6 guards. Manilow and 3 of the guards got shots off before Reggie could dodge back into cover, and Reggie was clipped in the shoulder. "I told you not to come back!" The 3 on the wall were doing their best, but simply didn't have the numbers and were taking cover to avoid the returning fire. Reggie kept his back to the wall, and at the top of his lungs he shouted, "I am Reggie Dempsey. I grew up in the slums, made my living punching man's lights out, and in the past 7 months, I've killed more zombies than all you fuckers put together." At 6 willpower and now 7 intimidate, Reggie's voice rang out and inflicted pants-shitting terror on everyone who heard him. Things grew quiet in the camp, but for the moaning of the zombies at the walls. And Reggie continued, "And in the past 7 months, all I've tried to do is help people. I ain't a smart man, but I can hit stuff hard. And in a world like this, I figured that's what people need. Someone to hit the fuckers trying to hurt them real hard. A couple of weeks ago, I saved some people. You, President Manilow, killed 4 of them for no reason. So now I'm gonna kill you. You hurt the people I helped. I figure I don't need no better reason than that. When I come around this corner again, I'm killing you and anyone who's still standing with you. You got to the count of 10. Everyone inside the walls kept dead silent. Reggie counted to 10, and then tossed his leather jacket into the waiting hail of gunfire. Reggie ran around the side of the building and dodged, hitting the ground just in time to avoid a second volley of shots from Manilow and the 4 guards who had him run off. Manilow had an assault rifle, and the guards had double-barreled shotguns, and they just each fired off the second shots. Reggie regained his feet and surged at full speed. He didn't even slow down when Manilow's automatic fire hit him square in the chest. He had reared in and closed the final distance that Manilow rushed to replace his magazine. The first 2 guards died, one to a kick that collapsed his ribs into his heart and lungs, and another to a backhand that snapped his neck. The other 2 threw down their weapons and turned to run, but Reginald Dempsey was a man of his word, and their back of their skulls were caved in before they could take 2 steps. Manilow finished reloading his weapon just in time for Reginald to pull it out of his hands and bend it in half. Strength fucking 7. Manilow opened his mouth to say something, but it turned into a scream as Reggie Axe Guitar tore off his left arm from his shoulder with a punch. He spun around against the wall, clutching his arms, eyes wide. Reggie punched. The bricks behind Manilow cracked. A dozen more punches and Manilow's head and torso were paste stuck to the building brick. Reggie grunted, satisfied, then turned and limped back to the wall. He climbed back up, and together the 4 of them lowered the ramp and walked out of the camp back into the ruins of the city.